Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, you are invited on a slow journey into the quiet world of the Ottoman palace. The subject before us may seem delicate, why certain women, Turkish or Jewish, were not chosen to enter the Sultan's harem. Yet we will not dwell on rules alone. Instead, we will wander gently, as if along marble corridors, noticing the calm details of life in a time long past. Imagine yourself inside Topkapi Palace. The night air is still. The Bosphorus lies in the distance, dark and steady, while faint lamps flicker in small courtyards. The sounds of the city are muffled here. Only the soft rustle of leaves in the gardens and the trickle of a hidden fountain accompany your steps. The harem was more than a private chamber. It was a carefully arranged world, a place where daily rhythms unfolded quietly behind closed doors. To understand why some were chosen and others were not, we must first allow ourselves to feel the gentle texture of their daily lives. And so, let us begin by entering this inner world.
The day begins slowly within the harem. At dawn, when the first light touches the domes of Istanbul, silence still rests across the palace. Inside the harem, oil lamps burn low. The faint glow reflects on painted tiles, their colors softened by centuries of hands brushing past. Concubines rise early, their steps careful upon cool stone floors. You can almost hear the swish of fabric, the layered silks, the softer cottons for sleep, the occasional rustle of embroidered sashes. Each garment is carefully folded and cared for, the rhythm of maintenance forming part of their daily discipline. The scent of rose water fills the air. It lingers in basins where water is poured over hands and faces. Sometimes incense drifts faintly from braziers, mixing with the sharper tang of soap. Morning begins not with loud commands, but with hushed movement, a soft order that shapes every hour. You may picture yourself walking through long corridors with latticed windows. Light falls gently through wooden screens, creating patterns of shadow that shift slowly as the sun rises. In one room, young concubines sit in orderly rows, learning to read passages aloud. Their voices are quiet, measured, carrying softly through the air. In another, older attendants oversee the brushing of hair, the tying of sashes, and the quiet rituals of grooming that define their world. There is a sense of repetition, tasks performed not once, but daily, for weeks, for years. Yet within this repetition, comfort also exists. The rhythm of their days becomes familiar, almost meditative. For many, the harem was less a place of intrigue and more school, a house of discipline where the body and the mind were shaped to serve the palace. Beyond the chambers lies a courtyard. The air here is cooler, touched by the breeze that moves gently through cypress trees. A fountain trickles, its sound constant like a heartbeat for the secluded world. Concubines walk here in pairs, their voices low, their movements graceful. It is not freedom, but it is a space of air, of light, of sky above the latticed walls. Food arrives quietly. Wooden trays with small dishes, bread, olives, cheeses, perhaps a sweetened sherbet. Meals are simple, yet served with care. Each woman eats in order, not hurriedly, but as part of the greater discipline of the household. The rhythm continues. Lessons in music, in embroidery, in etiquette. Hours pass softly, one after the other, until evening lamps are lit again. Night in the harem is quiet. Lattices are closed, and only the faint hum of whispered conversations remains. You can imagine lying down upon a simple mattress, the fabric faintly scented, the stone walls cool around you. The sounds of the palace fade into stillness, and sleep comes gently, as it did to countless women who lived this same rhythm, day after day.
As the rhythm of daily life in the harem settles into your mind, we can gently turn now to a life story, A story not of noise, nor of sudden drama, but of steady influence, the quiet but powerful figure of the Valide Sultan. The Valide Sultan was the mother of the reigning Sultan, and her presence was central to the order of the harem. It was she who oversaw much of its life, its discipline, and its selections. Without her permission, nothing significant could move forward. To understand why Turkish and Jewish women rarely, if ever, entered the harem, we must gently observe the world through her eyes. Imagine, then, a woman who was once herself a concubine. Perhaps she arrived in the palace as a young girl, taken from distant lands, maybe from the Black Sea coast, from Circassia, or from the Balkans. She spent her youth learning, being shaped by the rhythms we have already explored. She rose not through inheritance or noble birth, but by the favor of the Sultan. Over time, as she bore a child who would one day inherit the throne, she became the most respected woman of the empire. The Valide Sultan lived not in loud splendor, but in steady authority. Her chambers were more richly adorned, her attendants more numerous, yet she moved carefully, her words chosen softly, her decisions weighed with patience. She understood the fragility of power, and she knew that the empire depended on balance. It was here, in this delicate balance, that the choice of concubines mattered deeply. Turkish women, subjects of the empire, were not chosen. Why? Because to bring a Turkish woman into the harem as a concubine risked the intrusion of local power struggles. A concubine connected to an established family might pull the throne into factional conflict. The harem had to remain neutral, filled with women who had no roots in Ottoman society, no loyalties outside its walls. This was the unspoken rule, a rule the Valide Sultan upheld. And what of Jewish women? They too were excluded, not because they lacked beauty or refinement, far from it, but because their position in the empire was distinct. Jewish communities were protected under Ottoman law, but their daughters were rarely taken into palace life. The reasons were layered: respect for their community's separate traditions, the reluctance to disturb delicate balances of loyalty, and the empire's careful avoidance of any appearance of favoring one minority over another. The palace, in its secrecy, sought women from elsewhere, from the Caucasus, the Balkans, from faraway lands where the Ottoman Sultan ruled, but without deep social entanglements. Let us linger then on the biography of Concubine Sultan, one of the most famous Valide Sultans. Her life illustrates this quiet logic. Born far from Istanbul, on the island of Tinos in the Aegean, she was not Turkish nor Jewish. She entered the harem as a young girl, converted to Islam, and was educated in the palace arts. Over time, she rose to prominence, eventually becoming the wife of Sultan Ahmed I, and later, the Valide Sultan herself. Concubine understood well the need for neutrality. She carefully managed the harem, ensuring that the women who entered came from families with no ties to Ottoman politics. Many were Circassian or Georgian, prized not only for their beauty, but for their lack of direct political roots in the empire. In this way, the harem remained a space apart, removed from the frictions of Istanbul's many communities. When you imagine Concubine walking the corridors, think of her not as a distant, intimidating ruler, but as a woman who had lived every stage of the harem's life. She knew the routines, the discipline, the silence, and she knew, too, the dangers of allowing local power into that silent world. The selection process itself was deliberate, almost ritual-like. Girls were chosen, often from slave markets or from territories at the edge of the empire. They were brought to Istanbul, carefully trained, and introduced slowly into the rhythms of the palace. Their origins, distant, disconnected, made them safer choices for the throne's neutrality. And so, as you picture the harem in its long history, you begin to see why Turkish and Jewish women were absent. Their absence was not loud, not remarked upon day by day.
It was simply part of the structure, part of the quiet decisions that kept the harem insulated from the politics of the empire outside its walls. This biography of Qasem Sultan and others like her reminds us of the immense care that went into shaping even the most private aspects of the Ottoman court. In the stillness of the harem, choices were made not for spectacle, but for stability. The palace could not risk division, and so, even in the quietest corners, politics shaped who could enter and who could not. Imagine yourself once more in the palace. The Valide Sultan sits in her chamber, cushions arranged around her, attendants quietly waiting. She listens to reports, perhaps sipping a small cup of sweetened sherbet. Outside, the sun casts shifting patterns on the tiled walls. She is not hurried. She is deliberate, and in her calm decisions, entire futures are shaped. This is the biography of power in stillness. This is how absence is written into history, not through loud proclamation, but through quiet exclusion, repeated generation after generation.
As you rest deeper into this journey, let us turn now from individual lives to the broader world of culture and space. The harem was not merely a dwelling for women, nor simply a chamber of the palace. It was a layered world of meaning, shaped by architecture, ritual, and quiet symbolism. To walk within it, even in imagination, is to feel history breathing through walls of stone and tile. Imagine yourself once again stepping softly into the inner courtyards of Topkapi Palace. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries. Above, domes glimmer faintly in sunlight. The sound of the Bosporus is far away now. Here, the world is hushed. You see latticed windows, their wooden carvings delicate and intricate. Behind them, shadows move quietly. Concubines passing, attendants pausing, a glimpse of life unseen. The harem was designed with care. Corridors were narrow, bending, so that no chamber opened directly into another. Each passage slowed your step, each doorway framed your sight, creating a sense of distance and privacy. It was a world within a world, a place set apart from the noise of the city and even from much of the palace itself. The tiles tell their own story. Iznik tiles, glazed in deep blues, turquoise, and soft greens, cover the walls. Their patterns repeat endlessly. Arabesques, tulips, carnations, symbols of eternal order. To rest your eyes upon them is to feel calm repetition, a visual rhythm that mirrors the daily rhythm of those who lived here. Fountains were placed within the harem not only for refreshment, but for sound. The gentle trickle of water was thought to soothe the mind, to mask conversation, to carry whispers away into nothingness. The play of water and light gave the space a sense of tranquility. For women far from their homelands, this water was a companion, a voice of constancy in a life of discipline. Yet there was also mystery here. The harem was a place the public could not enter. Stories about it spread throughout Istanbul and beyond, often exaggerated, often imagined. To ordinary people, it became a symbol of hidden power, a world apart. Travelers wrote of it with fascination, weaving tales that blurred fact with fantasy. And so, the absence of Turkish and Jewish women within the harem became part of its mystique. Why were they not there? The answer was quietly practical: political balance, loyalty, neutrality. But to those outside, it became a curious puzzle. Some said the sultans preferred foreign beauty, far from their own people. Others whispered that Turkish women were too proud, too independent to submit to palace discipline. Still others claimed that Jewish women, respected in their own communities, were not taken so as not to disturb delicate religious harmony. These whispers lingered like the echoes in a tiled chamber, shaping perceptions though never fully true. Archaeologists who later studied the palace found the traces of this hidden life: carved wooden screens, pieces of broken ceramics, fragments of clothing embroidered with gold thread. Each fragment tells of daily life, yet also of absence. What is not there? Who was not present? The absence of Turkish and Jewish concubines is felt not only in records, but in the silence of these artifacts. Imagine yourself standing in the hall of the Valide Sultan. The air is cool, the light filtered through stained glass. The walls are lined with intricate tiles, repeating patterns that feel endless. You hear your own breath softly. In that silence, you realize the harem was not chaos, not indulgence, but discipline woven into stone, fabric, and time itself. The mystery lies not in what happened here, but in how it was imagined. Outsiders saw luxury, insiders knew structure. Outsiders imagined passion, insiders lived in rhythm. Outsiders speculated on favoritism, insiders understood exclusion. And so the question, why not Turkish, why not Jewish women, echoes within this cultural space. It is less a rule written down and more a principle lived quietly, repeated until it became tradition. The harem was a mirror of the empire, diverse, layered, disciplined, and always guarding its own balance. As you drift deeper, imagine the quiet of these chambers at night. The fountains fall silent, the lamps burn low, the corridors darken. Shadows stretch across Iznik tiles. Within this silence, you sense the weight of centuries, the secrets the walls hold, the stories told not in loud voices, but in whispers.
The palace harem was not merely a place of confinement, but a living, breathing world with its own rhythm. At dawn, when the first light broke through the lattice windows, a soft murmur of life began. Attendants moved gracefully across marble floors, carrying trays of sherbet infused with rose petals, while the faint scent of incense drifted through the air. The women of the harem, each dressed in layered silk garments of pastel blues, deep emeralds, and muted golds, emerged from their chambers in silence, as if the palace itself demanded reverence at this hour. In a quiet corner of the inner courtyard, the day began with poetry. It was a tradition for some concubines to gather and recite verses from Persian and Ottoman poets, their voices low, blending into a chant-like rhythm. The Valide Sultan encouraged such arts, for she believed that knowledge and refinement were as vital as beauty. Sitting cross-legged on embroidered cushions, young women traced calligraphy on parchment, while others softly strummed the oud or plucked the strings of the qanun. Music echoed gently off the tiled walls, filling the vast chambers with an almost dreamlike hum. Meals were no less ceremonial. The midday feast was carried on polished silver platters. Saffron rice, stuffed vine leaves, lamb cooked with apricots, and sherbet chilled with snow brought from the mountains. Women ate together, sitting on carpets woven with intricate floral motifs. They conversed not of politics, at least not openly, but of fashion, poetry, the stars, and the faint whispers of life beyond the gilded lattice screens. Yet behind these gentle conversations lay an undercurrent of quiet tension. For in the harem, every gesture carried meaning, and every alliance, no matter how subtle, might one day shape the fate of the empire. In the evenings, the great hall of the harem glowed with lamplight. Shadows danced across the tiled arches as musicians played, and dancers moved slowly, their silken skirts swirling in the candlelight. Some nights, a visiting storyteller was invited to weave tales of distant lands, caravans crossing deserts, sailors braving storms, lovers defying fate. The women listened, their eyes wide, each story echoing their own longing for freedom, or perhaps for power. The harem, for all its layers of ritual and beauty, was not simply a secluded garden of women hidden behind marble walls. It was, at its very heart, a center of power. And at the center of that power stood the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, the woman who shaped the course of empires from behind the lattice windows of the palace. Her influence was subtle, often whispered rather than proclaimed. She did not march with armies, yet her word could determine which pasha would lead a campaign. She did not sit in the diwan, yet her suggestions could sway imperial decrees. Ministers, ambassadors, even foreign emissaries knew that their fates might rest not in the Sultan's chamber, but within the harem's golden corridors. Consider Concubines Sultan. Rising from a concubine of foreign birth to the mother of a dynasty, she mastered the delicate dance of diplomacy and survival. In the stillness of the night, she would read petitions sent secretly through eunuchs, weighing each carefully, knowing that a single endorsement could elevate a man to riches or send him to exile in a far-off province. The Valide Sultan's quarters, richly decorated with velvet cushions and walls adorned with Iznik tiles, became more than a private retreat. They became a hidden council room. Here, behind the veil of silence, wars were influenced, alliances strengthened, and even royal marriages arranged. It is no exaggeration to say that the Ottoman Empire, stretching across 3 continents, often found its balance in the hands of a woman unseen by the outside world. To some, she was the guardian of the dynasty. To others, the shadowy power who ruled through whispers. As the night deepens, we might wonder, how many imperial decisions recorded in the annals of history were born not in the grand council chambers, but in the quiet hush of the harem, beneath the soft glow of oil lamps.
As night settles over Istanbul, the harem breathes in quiet patterns. The faint glow of lamps reflects off polished tiles and gilded walls, creating a world of shadow and light, soft as a whisper. In these hours, the palace is neither empty nor loud. It is alive with subtle movement, the hushed rhythm of life that flows beneath the notice of the wider empire. The Valide Sultan moves through her quarters, not hurriedly, but with deliberate calm. Her robes brush against the tiled floors, soft as a breeze, her hands lightly touching the edges of cushions and textiles she has arranged herself. Every object, every curtain, every embroidered tapestry has its place, chosen not only for beauty, but for balance. She understands that the smallest shift can alter the atmosphere, that calm is power, and order is authority. Within this world, young concubines continue their lessons, not just in poetry, music, or embroidery, but in the subtleties of influence. They learn to speak softly, yet leave impressions that linger. They practice gestures that seem ordinary, yet carry meaning to those who watch closely. The rhythm of their days, repeated endlessly, teaches patience, discernment, and the quiet strength that comes from self-control. In one chamber, a small group of girls studies the art of perfumery, grinding rose petals, ambergris, and musk. Each fragrance is measured, mixed, and stored carefully, the scent wafting gently through the room. To outsiders, this might appear as mere decoration or indulgence. Within the harem, it is a lesson in patience, subtlety, and the unseen ways influence can be carried, not through words, but through scent, through impression, through presence. Meanwhile, in another corner of the harem, music threads its quiet way into the night. One girl's delicate kanun notes intertwine with the low hum of another's voice, while a third practices the ney, each sound carrying lessons in rhythm, harmony, and timing. To master these arts is not simply to entertain, it is to prepare for the moments when every gesture, every word, and every note may influence the course of the Sultan's attention.
Outside the rooms of learning and music, the courtyard fountains continue to flow. Their gentle gurgle echoes softly, a constant reminder of the passage of time, of the life flowing in measured cadence behind the walls. Here, the harem becomes more than a home. It is a reflection of the empire itself, controlled, intricate, layered, and alive. The rituals of daily life are interspersed with quiet moments of reflection. Some nights, the Valide Sultan summons her closest attendants to discuss matters of the palace, not in raised voices, but in whispers. Decisions about alliances, marriage arrangements, or the subtle guidance of young concubines are made here, in this hushed intimacy. A glance, a pause, a gesture, each can carry as much weight as a formal decree. And yet, even in this world of order and discipline, there is mystery. The outer world imagines extravagance, intrigue, and scandal. The walls of the harem, however, hold stories of endurance, learning, and subtle influence. Every embroidered cushion, every tiled arch, every carefully placed lamp is a witness to the hidden currents that shape power quietly. As the night deepens, you might imagine yourself walking these halls, the scent of rosewater and amber filling the air, the gentle murmur of music drifting from one chamber to another, shadows dancing on tiled walls, and the soft, deliberate footsteps of the Valide Sultan echoing like a heartbeat through the corridors. Here, every whisper carries meaning, every gesture holds intention, and the rhythm of life, steady, subtle, and eternal, continues, shaping futures in silence.
The harem's days were guided by rhythm and routine, each movement precise, each ritual observed with quiet attention. As dawn light poured through the lattice windows, the corridors seemed to breathe with a gentle energy, almost imperceptible yet ever present. The soft rustle of silk against polished marble, the faint scent of rosewater and amber, and the distant gurgle of fountains created a symphony of subtle motion. On certain mornings, the harem gathered for small ceremonial rituals. These were not grand public spectacles, but private events infused with meaning. Young concubines would practice curtsies, gestures of respect, and the delicate offering of refreshments to elders. Every action was taught carefully, a tilt of the head, the placement of the hands, the cadence of a step. These rituals were both art and preparation, training and observation, patience and timing. In the music rooms, the faint resonance of a kanun or ney might accompany a recitation of poetry. Each note, each word was a lesson in harmony and rhythm, teaching concubines to sense the subtle shifts in mood, both in themselves and in others. The Valide Sultan often observed these sessions quietly, seated on her cushions, her eyes attentive yet serene. She recognized promise not only in beauty or talent, but in intelligence, discretion, and the capacity to influence others without a word. Meals, too, were infused with ceremony. Silver trays carried delicacies such as saffron rice, sweet pastries, and spiced meats, arranged meticulously on embroidered carpets. Concubines ate together in measured silence, savoring each bite while exchanging subtle glances and whispers. Even in such quiet moments, alliances and understandings were formed, connections that would later carry weight in the unseen hierarchies of the palace. Afternoons might be spent in study or private reflection. Some young women practiced embroidery, crafting delicate flowers and intricate patterns, their hands moving with care and patience. Others wrote letters or poems, which would sometimes be shared with favored peers or attendants. The walls, adorned with Iznik tiles, reflected not only light, but the silent stories of countless women who had walked the same paths before them, their footsteps leaving faint echoes in the marble. The Valide Sultan's influence extended beyond observation. She occasionally summoned young concubines to her chambers, offering guidance in the subtle arts of diplomacy, conversation, and the careful navigation of palace life. Here, in these quiet moments, they learned how to read expressions, interpret silences, and make decisions that could shape their fates. It was education, mentorship, and preparation all rolled into one, conducted in hushed tones and gentle gestures. Evenings were marked by quiet celebrations. The harem's inner courtyards glowed with the soft light of lanterns,
and the faint scent of rosewater and amber hung in the air. Small performances were held, a recitation of poetry, a musical interlude, or the delicate swaying of a dance. These were not displays for entertainment alone. They were opportunities to demonstrate skill, grace, and the subtle intelligence that could command attention without overt assertion. Through these rituals and routines, the harem maintained a balance between serenity and strategy. Every glance, every word, every gesture carried weight. Here, the world outside, the empire, its sultans, ministers, and foreign envoys, was mirrored in miniature, a microcosm of influence governed by observation, patience, and careful intention. The harem's power was quiet, often invisible, but undeniable in its reach. As night fell, the soft murmur of music, the gentle flicker of lanterns, and the faint aroma of rosewater lulled the palace into calm. The rhythm of life continued, steady and measured, teaching every resident the enduring lesson that influence, wisdom, and strength often lie in subtlety rather than spectacle.
As the night deepens over Istanbul, the harem takes on a softer, almost dreamlike quality. The last lanterns flicker in the hallways, casting golden pools of light on the intricately patterned tiles and marble floors. Water from the fountains ripples silently, catching faint moonlight, as if carrying whispers of the countless lives that have passed through these walls. The young concubines move gently through the corridors, their silken taris rustling like leaves in a quiet forest. Some linger near the fountains, letting the cool spray touch their hands, while others settle onto embroidered cushions in chambers lined with Iznik tiles. The rhythm of their day, learning, music, rituals, subtle gestures, slows now, becoming almost meditative. In the Valide Sultan's chambers, the soft glow of a single oil lamp illuminates her serene face. She reviews the day's events in quiet contemplation. Who learned their lessons well? Who mastered their music? Whose gestures carried promise for influence yet to come? Every decision, every whisper, every look within the harem has had ripple effects beyond these walls, shaping futures unseen. Outside the chambers, the sounds of the empire are distant. Only the harem's gentle rhythm remains, the soft plink of a kanun string, the faint hum of a poem recited in practice, the whisper of silk along stone floors. It is a private world, enclosed yet expansive, containing centuries of tradition, learning, and quiet power. As you imagine yourself walking through these hallways, the scents of rosewater, amber, and jasmine mingle in the air. The tiled walls shimmer faintly in the lamplight, each pattern a story, each shadow a memory. Here you feel the weight of history not in battles or proclamations, but in the patience, intelligence, and resilience of women whose lives unfolded quietly, yet with enduring influence. In the final hours of the night, the harem becomes almost timeless. You might picture a young Qasem Sultan reflecting in a corner chamber, or a concubine practicing a single note on her ney, unaware of how that melody might later echo through imperial halls. These moments, simple and serene, are the essence of the harem, a world of beauty, knowledge, discipline, and hidden authority moving at its own gentle pace. And as the first hints of dawn touch the latticed windows once more, the harem pauses in soft anticipation. The cycle of life, ritual, and learning is ready to begin again, quiet yet enduring, a rhythm as old as the palace itself. Perhaps in this stillness, you can sense that the true power of the harem was not in spectacle, jewels, or public recognition. It was in patience, education, subtle influence, and the quiet cultivation of wisdom, a legacy that shaped the empire in ways the world could scarcely see. Now, as the night wanes and your own mind drifts gently toward rest, imagine the harem's lanterns flickering softly, the fountains murmuring their eternal song, and the whispers of history moving quietly through marble corridors. And with that, the story gently settles, leaving you in calm reflection, ready for sleep.